Hi there, and welcome to the first episode of Ravelox Projects. It's a bit of an inauspicious start, I'm afraid, because I was hoping for banners and streamers and fanfares and parades and everything to kick it all off, but I forgot to record half the project that I want to show you. This first project is an LED light panel that's used in the dentist scene for Little Shop of Horrors at the high school this weekend. And what I made it out of was plywood, some acrylic, and also a wooden frame. Here's some of the video that I managed to salvage with a little bit of commentary. Let's get started. Alright, I'm a doofus. The one thing I forgot to do was press record while I was using the table saw to cut these channels. So we have two channels in the wood. The first one is for the plywood, the second one is for the perspex. And it's easier to cut the channel on the frame all the way along without cutting the frame to size, because then you know everything lines up. The next thing I have to do is to rip this plywood slightly because it is bigger than the perspex and I want the frame to be the right size. So here goes. And after cutting the plywood to size, I then needed to cut the frame to match those dimensions with the acrylic and also the plywood. And what I also did was sized up where I should cut the 45-degree angles where the sides of the frame join together. So I've cut the frame to size. I've also put some 45-degree angles so that the frame joins like this. The one problem that I do have right now is that the channel for the perspex is slightly more shallow than the one for the plywood, which means that I just need to get in there again and make it a little deeper so that the whole thing will fit together. So I've dry fit the panel, and I did need to make a few adjustments to some of the lengths of these frame pieces, but they all fit together with a little bit of pressure, so I have to screw those together at some point, and that should form the panel quite nicely. And next was an application of all-in-one paint and primer to give it a surgical white look. And now for the electronics part of it. We've got a reel of 5-volt LEDs, and the reason why I chose 5-volt is that this needs to be a standalone light panel. The 12-volt LEDs tend to have a larger power source and it's difficult to hide that. So we're going to run this from a 9-volt battery with a 5-volt regulator, and there will be a switch on the side of the panel that will turn it off and on. What I need to do is I need to disconnect this. I can snip it just here, I'll lose that LED, but that's not a problem. And these have an adhesive backing, so what I can do is then stick those down to the plywood that we saw earlier and then solder all the positive and negative points so that the thing gets powered. And there's the panel with the LED strips attached with the adhesive backing. So I've had to make a few adjustments after I've done some testing. What I have is some LED strips that are actually soldered. You can see the ground and the positive wires that they're soldered to. I've added some more LED strips which I'm about to solder together, but the way this works is that there's a switch controlling on and off. There's the 9-volt to 5-volt regulator, and then I've drilled a hole in the back of the panel so that the connector for the 9-volt battery can be stuck on the back of the panel, and then it's easily changed without having to go into the panel itself. Now the other thing that I did have to do was to chisel out a hole for this switch to fit in. It was a little bit too big, and I also hadn't accounted for the depth of this particular piece of wood in the frame, so I had to chisel quite deeply, but that fits through. But just to show you that I have everything working, this is the panel so far. The other LEDs will light up. Now the other thing that I had to get was some frosted perspex acrylic, and this is going to fit on the frame and hopefully diffuse some of the light when it's lit up. It should be looking quite good for the stage. And here's the finished article. I hot glued everything together, and there we go, we have a light panel. I'm hoping that the LEDs aren't going to be too distracting, but it definitely does what it needs to.
And there you have it, the first Ravolox project. If you enjoyed it, please click like. If you want to be notified when I post more of these videos, please subscribe. If you didn't, and you don't, then I thank you anyway, because you made it through to the end. Well done, you.